Okay, everyone, we're live.
Okay, let's go. It's 6:03. We have a quorum. It's the January monthly Board of Education meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, before we dive into the agenda, we have 3 sets of minutes that we need to approve. Can I have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the December 20th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
Have a second?
I second.
Any comments or potential edits to the minutes? No? Okay, all in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
I, Sharon.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Tony. Peter and Taffy are not on. Oh, Taffy just connected. Okay, great. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Can I have a second set of minutes?
Yes, move that the Weston Board of Education approve the meeting minutes of the December 20th, 2021 executive session meeting minutes.
Can I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
I, Sharon.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, David.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. And the third one now.
Yes, move that the Weston Board of Education approve the December 17th, 2021 executive session meeting minutes.
Second?
I
I'll
second.
Oh, Bernadette.
Thanks, Bernadette. All in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Taffy.
I, Sharon.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Those who are participating from the public, you'll notice the executive session minutes are really more pro forma. Actually, those meetings are private meetings of the board. So there are no detailed minutes of those meetings, but we have to post those meetings in terms of from a process perspective. So we're not leaving anything out. These are just private meetings. So public comment. Do we have anyone joining from the public? Dan?
Yes, we do have several people. One person we cannot let in because we cannot tell who their name is.
Okay.
But Jody, if you want to let them in, and then Jody will call their name when it's their time to speak, and then they can unmute themselves.
Okay. All right, Jody, did they have?
The first one that we have is Greg Haythorn.
Okay, Mr. Haythorn?
Yes, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Board of Ed members. Greg Haythorn, 6 Winthrop Hill. So despite an enrollment decrease of 40 students the past 2 years, as well as 7 more years of projected enrollment declines by over 100 additional students, this year's proposed WPS budget appears to represent the largest annual spending increase in decades since the opening of WIS in 2005. More problematic, the enormous difference between the proposed 3.5% budget increase and the as much as 6% additional spending increase is opaque to Weston taxpayers and voters. This proposed distinction is critical for Weston parents and taxpayers to understand before the Weston boards ask them to vote their approval in the coming months. The cause of this great additional spending increase is varied including emergency federal COVID funding, unclear total pull forward of equipment purchasing and contracting from FY23 to the past FY21 and current FY22 years due to unspent FY21 budget dollars, ever expanding state partnership health insurance plan cost subsidies and actuarial manipulation using even more emergency COVID funds at the state level, an accounting practice which for a variety of reasons keeps close to 20 proposed WPS staff members as well as other costs entirely off the FY23 budget books. WPS is already the top spending per pupil district in the state of Connecticut before this great expansion of spending, as well as the great increase in risk of future unsustainable district and community fiscal liabilities as a result. And despite top spending, WPS academic outcomes and enrollment are both documented to be in long-term decline long before COVID. In other words, the only thing WPS doesn't need is more spending. Therefore, the proposed expansion of budget and spending at a historic rate will likely have the adverse effect of masking the root causes of these declines in the short term, while further delaying long overdue reforms that would cause WPS to deliver the top academic outcomes and education experience consistent with top spending per pupil. The proposed expansion of spending is a disservice to WPS students and the Weston community at large in the absence of clear accounting, clear metrics, and a valid multi-year budget projection. Until those are presented to parents and Weston voters, along with the proposed spending and budget increases, the BOE is only perpetuating avoidable WPS declines for years more to come. Additional funding and spending are documented to be the only improvement to resources WPS does not need. It is long past time for the central office and BOE to instead focus on the manner in which education is delivered and the effectiveness with which top spending per pupil funding is spent, rather than simply shoveling more and more dollars at a worsening set of problems. The proposed spending increase is not just unsustainable, it is academically delusional. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haythorne. Who is the next up?
We have Mary Welsh Lehman.
Mary, if you can, please go ahead and unmute yourself when you're free to speak.
No, I did not want to make a comment. I was trying to listen and the live stream link wasn't working at the time. So I just prefer to listen and hear what everyone has to say right now. Thank you. The live stream link is now working though, but thank you.
Is the live stream link working now?
Yes, now it is. But at the time when I tried to get on.
Okay, all right. So, okay. So hopefully you can join on that link as well.
Yes, I'll switch over there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. Do
And
we
the
have
next-
anyone else?
Yes, we have one more person, and that is Jennifer Haythorne.
Hi, guys. I actually was in combination with Greg. If his time ran out, then I was going to continue, but it looked like you allowed him to say everything. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And that appears to be the only participants that I can see.
All right, okay, great. Let's move on to our student reps. From what I gather, our student reps are not available this evening, so they can catch us up on everything next month. The next item on the list is a presentation from Tecton. I don't know, as part of the Facilities Optimization Committee, Tecton has been working with the staff now in terms of really understanding kind of how education is delivered in the district, and also before we actually look at specific configurations for potential configurations for our campus, really to engage administration and staff on a number of topics. So I don't know, Lisa, if you want to kind of introduce Antonia and what and the work that's been going on with
Sure.
TechCon. Sure.
Sure, with pleasure. So Antonia is a familiar face in the Western Public Schools as far as that we have been working closely with her, and her task was to gather our feedback first with the administrative team. We had a in-person meeting with Antonia and also Jeff from Tectron, and they talked to us about different grade configurations, things that we thought were important overall as far as delivering the academic program. And after we met with them for, I don't know, it was probably about 90 minutes, something like that, our admin team, the next step we thought would be important in looking at specifically different grade configurations to talk to some of the teachers that had worked in those grade configurations, teachers that remember, some of them remembering the days of the middle school when it was a 5A building, or perhaps they've worked in a different kind of a K-5 building in other districts. So I want to thank Dan Doak, Patty Falber, and Laura Kadis, who were able to organize these teacher volunteers to join what we call think tanks. We started first with middle school teachers and WIS teachers looking at 6-8 versus 5-8, things like that. And then today we had the Hurlbut and WIS teachers again looking specifically at the lower elementary. And Antonia was there, has put together a terrific presentation. As part of this, we also did she did a great video to kind of sort of prime the pump, and I'll let her take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa and Tony, and thank you for this opportunity for me to provide an update. They were great sessions, and I think that was a perfect introduction. So let me share my screen and I'll walk you through what we...
Just for point of clarification, one of the sessions was this afternoon. And so Antonia just finished this presentation. Jody will be posting it, but literally it's hot off the computer.
That's very true. Yeah. But yeah, it was a great collection of sessions. So we really appreciated not only the feedback from the administrators, but from the educators themselves. So as Lisa mentioned, we started by creating a video. It was about 8 to 9 minutes, and it was intended to spark ideas around both the impact of the educational environment, specifically on student experience, achievement, health and wellness, and then the opportunities that exist to transform the buildings as you have them, and think about different models for grade configuration. So we did have 2 think tank sessions with a select group of teacher representatives on January 13th, as Lisa mentioned, with the middle school and with WIS, and then today with Hurlbut and again with WIS. Great conversations, and some of the slides that we had shared in the video were about the why behind this project, which I know we are all galvanized around, right? It's all going back to the students and the student experience, and how we can support their needs and our educators. So we were talking a lot about how we can consciously select building components because of their impact on human health, and what the power is in those conscious decisions to impact things like student achievement and holistic health and wellness. We shared just some precedent imagery throughout the video to spark, again, ideas of what could be in the reinvention of some of the buildings that we currently have, and ideas around what could flex, what could expand. We're seeing a lot of those modalities now in educational environments. So just sparking some ideas there, as well as this idea of personalization and belonging, which we know really fosters students to not only excel themselves, but it creates those strong interpersonal bonds, which is central to the Weston community of learners. We talked about the exterior of the architecture and the the interior as well. Of course, lots of the transforming spaces slides are about, you might, have an existing building and it's hard to think outside of what that could be because you're in it day in and day out. You walk up to the front door almost every day of the year. And so it becomes so habitual that it's hard to break out of, what could it be? So we were sharing a few transformative slides to spark ideas there. And then we posed some questions. We had this idea of thinking small and big simultaneously. And that thinking small idea was really about the daily needs, daily challenges. What are the fundamentals that are super important to be able to effectively do your job, as well as those big ideas, the visionary thoughts, where you want to take curriculum. Are there projects today that you would love to pursue or collaborations that you think would be advantageous, but somehow the existing architecture is impeding you? So we were talking about questions like that. And then we specifically dialed into the 5 to 8 grade configuration. What are the pros and cons, challenges and advantages there? And the same thing with pre-K to 1. And we did in both conversations touch on the peripheries of those grade levels. So what happens, for example, at the 4 to 5 grade level transition, or what happens at the 1 to 2 grade level transition? And what we heard from both sessions, the message was that the current grade configuration works well, but some of the models that we were presenting could work also. We didn't really hear a compelling reason to necessarily change the current grade configuration, but there was acknowledgement that we can explore these different ideas. And so as we begin to develop and present the options architecturally, there will be a continued exploration of what happens with this 5 to 8 group and this pre-K to K or pre-K to 1 group as well. So specifically for 5 to 8, we heard that the advantages are that if you include 5th grade in the middle school, they're already familiar with that school environment. So that transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, there's less anxiety around that transition. And we heard that 5th grade does look forward to programs that they hear about in the middle school, things like robotics and the maker tech. And so having them within that same space gives them the opportunity to directly see those programs in action. Some of the challenges that we heard were that 5th graders, and it could be the nature of the past couple of years, it could be the nature of the social media dialogue, but we're noticing that 5th graders in particular are socially more mature, but behaviorally they're still younger. And so just being really sensitive to where they are social emotionally at this age was something that we took into consideration throughout the course of the conversation. They also noted that there are certain natural transitions that happen after 5th grade. So there's a lot of things set in place that are in that 3 to 5 grade level range. So curriculum, math, the grade structure itself. They noted that there were just some natural breaks after 5th grade that make the 5 to 8 combination a little bit more challenging. And there was this thought that, well, 5th grade, if they're in a pre-K to 5, or if they're in a 3 to 5, they're school leaders as 5th graders. And if they are now brought into a middle school space, they could miss out on being those leaders in their school environment. And it was a very empowering experience for them, several teachers noted. And so just making sure that if they are in this 5 to 8 space, that there's a way for them to have some leadership opportunities and contribute in that way still. So programming, we heard that a stage would be great, a proper venue for performances, looking to the future. The influx of VR and AR technology would be great, specifically tied into the makerspace to upgrade what's currently existing. We heard that the classroom size can be a challenge in 5th grade, especially because there's not quite enough space to do the zoning that they would like to have happen, and there are more adults in the room as these 5th graders are, themselves growing as kids. So they're larger students in the same size space as a 3rd and a 4th grader, but they have still a lot of adults in the room, and they're growing students. So it was a little bit tight, the square footage. So if they could have bigger classrooms, that would be helpful. They noted that the furniture tends to change year to year based on the student needs. So having some furniture that's flexible and adaptable would be really helpful to be able to create a space that's really tailored to each individual student learning experience. More project-based learning opportunities. So the Colonial Crafts project, more project-based learning specifically tied to social studies would be advantageous. There's a growing need for gender-neutral bathrooms and having more sped space nearby. So as we develop things like neighborhoods and pods, I'm just making sure that there are special education rooms nearby to supplement. Collaboration spaces, again, that sharing with other classes. They noted that currently they'll open 2 doors across a hallway, and that's how 2 classrooms will often collaborate. So if there's a space dedicated, or a space that invites that to happen a little bit more organically, that will be appreciated. And then again, thinking about those neighborhoods, if there could be a space for teachers themselves within each pod. So a workroom with a copy center, restrooms, some storage, and a water fountain. Pre-K to 1, again, we heard current grade configuration works well, but pre-K to 1 could also work with some advantages and challenges. So there was this really fun idea brought to light that if you have a 3 to 5 space, it can feel a little bit more mature, even though the student ages are still, you still want to invite this sense of young learning and playfulness. And sometimes that can get lost in simply a 3 to 5 space. So an advantage of bringing in 2nd grade would be that you can bring in some of those playful elements of a lower elementary architecture and interior design and infuse some of that playfulness. There is a same or similar need. So things like classrooms, infrastructure and playscapes. So in this pre-K to 1 space, there's not a lot of differentiation. So that they just noted some synergies between combining pre-K to 1. Some challenges are that the transition at 2nd grade is already a stressful time for these students. And so just thinking about the mindset of a 1st grader now having to make that transition, what's that like for them? And they're, again, similar to the 5 to 8, there are natural transitions in the curriculum and other programming that happen after 2nd grade. And so just keeping those in mind. And the fact that some of the 2nd grade projects and just the example of having 2nd graders in the school with 1st graders, similar to the 5th grade as leaders, it's a good example for the 1st graders to be able to look up and see their peers in 2nd grade and see what they're working on. Some of the programming asks here, definitely storage rose to the top in both conversations, more places to organize and put away teaching materials, to give that space back to the classrooms, to be able to free up more floor space for creating those zones and more wall space for displaying student work. And then if there could be, for a less immediate need, more centralized prep and material storage, dedicated rooms that are nearby, that are places to store and organize resources. We heard flexible furniture, so tables instead of desks, movable seats, everything on wheels to really create those dynamic spaces. Communication, this was a really fun idea about how when students are transitioning, the example was from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, there's sometimes a loss of communication between, what has that student been working on in 2nd grade and what's happening in 3rd grade, and just the idea that there could be as we develop these options, a way to create fluidity between school buildings at those transition years specifically. So is there a way that the architecture can help facilitate conversations between teachers to be able to help a student transition in that time? And then a gathering space for the whole school to be together. And so I think I'll stop here on this slide. Next steps for us were, as Lisa said, this is all new information. So we're going to process it and send out some meeting notes. We're going to create a repository, a shared folder, so that educators can drop in precedent images, articles that they find, anything that they want to share with us, so that they have an avenue to be able to do that. And then we'll definitely use all of this information as we develop the options moving forward. And with that, I think I'll stop the share. I know there were some folks on this call here that were also in our conversation, so feel free to jump in if there's something that you'd like to add.
And Tony, let me just give a little context to the configurations, right? For those that haven't really not been intimately involved in what the Facilities Optimization Committee has been doing. So the baseline, the baseline that we have is, and what we have today is a four school campus, right? So one of the options, right, involves ultimately having one of the schools, and right now it's Hurlbut, ultimately be a town office facility, also, and somewhere, facilities for administration, town employees, creating, maybe some synergy between administration and town employees, which then ultimately leads to discussion around grade configurations for the other schools, right? And so the options that are being explored now is to have a 5 to 8 configuration at the middle school, WIS being a 2 to 4, right? And then ultimately pre-K to first grade, that if it's a viable configuration, then the question is, how does that work architecturally, and where does that exist, and ultimately, but I guess all of this has to be compared to what we have today, which is a 4-school configuration, right? The question I have, which is, in order for this to proceed, is that do we see, you put advantages and disadvantages, but right now, are there any major sort of showstoppers, if you will, to having a 5 to 8 configuration in the middle school, or having a 2 to 4 configuration at WIS, or having a potentially another structure that has pre-K to first grade, right? From the discussions you've had, is that one option that could be viable, or do you see any real major problems, with that would be a real, non-starter?
Yeah, I think from the conversations that we've had, they're viable options, but there are certain challenges. For example, one challenge that was brought up with a pre-K to K group potentially on their own somewhere was the isolated feeling that kindergarten teachers could have, being separated from their colleagues in lower elementary teaching environment. So I think what our plan is, as we develop the options, is to just clearly evaluate them on a spectrum of not only things like cost and energy efficiency, but what are the educational challenges and impacts as well. So we'll just make sure that we clearly identify those challenges with each of the options.
Well, if we don't get over the educational challenges, we can't get to the next step, right? I think that the educational viability and the the advantages definitely have to outweigh the disadvantages for any configuration that we come up with before we even move to all the fun stuff, right? Like, what is it going to look like and all the, and all of that. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the overarching message that Jeff and I heard was that the current grade configuration does work well. And there did seem to be lots of benefits to keeping that, not only just from a structure perspective, but just from that, again, social and emotional experience of students and when they transition. So it seemed that the current configuration was the best fit. But there were no options that said definitely don't do that, except for, similar to the meeting with the administrators, a school of a certain size was on the table. So that community feeling where students can get to know each other, and teachers and students have more of that personal, individualized connection. That was important.
Any questions, comments from the other board members?
I have a question.
Go ahead, David.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Antonia, thanks for your work on this. Do you have another district that might be similar in enrollment as ours that you could tell us a little bit about what their configuration is as far as number of physical buildings and what the layout looks like as far as the grades go?
We definitely do, David. If it's all right, I can gather that information and share it. We have a list of other schools in your DIRG and their population size and the schools that are within their district. So if that's all right, I'll prepare that and send it your way. Off the top of my head, I would have to dig through our files to be able to grab that information for you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Got it.
Yes, thanks so much, Antonia, for this presentation. It's been really helpful. In listening to your, in viewing your slides and listening to your comments, the questions regarding, optimization of space in terms of learning outcomes for these grades and shifting the grades per building. The only scenario that has that could raise potential capacity issues would be a switch to 5 to 8 at the middle school, because you're looking at adding a grade, not just shifting grades. Have you examined that issue? Is there space to have an entire additional grade in that single building? And what does that look like?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Great question. We have examined it. It is possible. And we know that the middle school is in need of renovation. So I think we were envisioning a situation where this would be not only a renovation, but there would be some minor additions as well. And the specific of that, again, we haven't quite developed the options yet. So I would love to be able to show you a plan that outlines that. I just don't have it yet. But we do know that from a square footage standpoint per student, that it is possible to combine 5 to 8. And that's something that was important within that structure, was the fact that a school within a school would be a helpful scenario there, where 5 and 6 are more connected and 7 to 8 are more connected, but each of the grade levels, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they each have their own neighborhood. So we were starting to work with that as a partie, where within that middle school space, 5 to 6 have some more shared resources, 7 to 8 have more shared resources, but each of the grades has their own neighborhood.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I'll look forward to that. We've heard through our budget presentations and the work that our administration has done on the budget that some of the investment we're making in the middle school is to keep and maintain the teaming model where children are grouped and they're with the same teachers, so that those teachers can give feedback about students. So I would want to make sure that would be something that would continue in any configuration with adding grades or capacity.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a question, Antonia. Great job. This looks, I mean, it's interesting to gather these information points. But my question to you is kind of going along with what Melissa just said, which is the middle school model is clearly something that we've been valuing in this district, but fifth graders don't adhere to the middle school model. So understanding that there would be different neighborhoods, would we be looking at just a physical change, or would we also be looking at an academic change for fifth graders, or would they maintain the same? I mean, is there a suggestion or a thought process behind how that would be handled? Whether they would be going into a middle school model, or whether they'd be staying in their classrooms and with minimal changing as they do now?
Probably a question for Dan more than Antonia, right?
Sure.
Or Ken. I think where I'm familiar with
Yeah.
where I'm familiar with
Patty.
I think that
Or anyone.
there's
Or
often
anyone,
a
yeah.
or a separate structure to the fifth grade day. It doesn't usually integrate into the middle school model, but I'll let one of the other administrators talk to that.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I can start and Patty can join in if that
Yeah, because
works.
she lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, that's true. Right. That's right.
Patty, do you want to start then?
So sure. When I did fifth grade at the middle school, which is fifth grade and fourth grade actually, the middle school. Fifth grade was, well, we followed the bell schedule. We really didn't follow a sixth grade schedule. We were in our classroom. We did a little bit of teaming. We did a little bit of teaming like social studies and science. We did a little teaming with math. But we didn't, it was definitely a fifth grade, more elementary school model where we had a self-contained classroom than it was moving around like a middle school.
And I think just a little bit in terms of where we are right now with our fifth grade, we have a teaming model in fifth grade. It's just a different teaming model than in sixth grade, right? We have teams of 2 teachers. You have the literacy teacher who will teach, reading and writing, and then her partner will teach math and science, and the 2 classes switch. And so that's how we partner up. And we've had 3 teacher teams at fifth grade at times. So it really just depends on what we're trying to accomplish academically, but it has always looked different than the middle school.
Okay. I was just curious because obviously we need to take that into consideration when we think about a physical structure and how we're going to address it.
So Antonia, what do you see as the next steps now after today's meeting?
We're going to, as I said, wrap all of this information up into a series of meeting minutes, which we'll share with the group, and then ultimately have that become a foundation for the options that we present. So our next step is to continue the conversation, leave that door open for educators to be able to share articles and images, things. One teacher that we met with today said she's got a whole Google Doc ready to share with us. So we welcome, a continued communication. And then we're going to start to formalize some conceptual plans.
Yeah. Great. And while, just so everyone knows, while this is going on with Antonia and the administration and the staff, Tecton is also working on some of the financials, some of the work on, what it would take ultimately to bring our current buildings up to good repair, right? So that we have kind of a baseline cost for the existing configuration and making sure that we have, when we compare different potential configurations, we'll also have the comparison with the baseline cost of bringing all of our buildings up to good repair as well.
Antonia, I'll get that folder ready tomorrow. I didn't get a chance, and make sure that the teachers have the links and everything, because I think that'll be important to continue the discussion. Thank you for your hard work with this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Yep, thanks for spending the time with us tonight. We look forward to
Thank you.
more. All right.
I'll prepare that information that David requested and I'll send it through you, Tony.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we move on to the next topic? We have a Facilities Optimization Committee meeting tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow evening. So if anyone's interested in participating, the details are on the town website as well. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Lisa, the consent agenda, any new hires, resignations, retirements, etc.?
Yes, we have several new hires. It kind of goes in waves. You hear about the resignations and then you hear about the new hires. The first one is Eliana Shervin, is a special education teacher at Hurlbut. She is replacing Ms. McLeod, who had resigned, and Eliana is already in place working hard. Robert Fuda is our new custodian at Weston Middle School, again, effective right after the new year. You may recall that Hernando Ocampo retired this December after, I think it was 17 years of service here in the Weston Public Schools. So we're happy. I know Dan Doak is very happy that that position has been filled. Dr. Renee Lincoln. Dr. Lincoln is our new Assistant Director of Special Education. She will begin her tenure with us on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and she is replacing Ms. Courtier, who had resigned earlier in the year. And finally, we have Gemma Richards, who is a paraeducator at Hurlbut. She started actually right before the holiday break, replacing Ms. Merced, who had resigned. And that's it.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the items on the consent agenda as recommended.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Dave. All in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Taffy.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes and congratulations to all the new hires into the district. Want to take the next item?
Sure,
Weston
thank
High
you.
School Principal, the talent acquisition search.
Thank you. And I would like to thank our Human Resources Manager, Ms. Kavanaugh, who is on the call tonight, for working with me and developing this, talent acquisition plan. Basically, where we have an aggressive timeline with this, we will be posting the position for the principalship of Weston High School the first week of February, internally first by contract, and then externally, we're looking at posting it on Connecticut REAP, on NASDAQ, and looking for a couple of other places. I know Terry's taking into consideration where else we could probably post this at a broader level. The week of February 14th to the 18th, we would like to hold focus groups. We think that's important. There would be one with parents and community members that would be led by myself and Dr. Craw. We also think it's important to get input from students regarding this, specifically at the high school, as well as staff. So we have a timeline of that week to do all of the focus groups. Simultaneously, we are going to be distributing surveys online. We have a couple of tentative drafts, but we also want to make sure that it reflects some of the focus group feedback. We're doing that at the same time, probably more towards the end of that week. And it would go to the Board of Ed, to parents, to staff, to ask about specific characteristics and things that they consider would be important for the next principal of Weston High School. We anticipate the position closing at the beginning of March. And then there is a committee that will start by reviewing the resumes at central office. And then we will have 2 rounds of interviews in March, with final interviews being the last week of March, first week of April, if all goes well, reference checks. And then we hope to announce the person the week of April 18th. As I said, this is a little bit aggressive, so it might be tweaked somewhat. But I think this is a pretty solid process. I know that Ms. Kavanaugh has done several principal searches as part of her background. And, I'm confident that we can accomplish this. It's very exciting. I was thinking about it. And, this position has not been open in a long time because I was in the position, I guess, 13 years. 13 years. So it's been a long time since we've opened this up and searched for this. Terry, I don't know if you have anything to add based on if there was something that perhaps I missed, I should give more detail to.
No, I don't think so. I mean, as Lisa said, I've done this search a couple of times in my past. I think we're poised to be aggressive with the search. Certainly, it is a flexible search in that if something, the search will close on a certain day. Certainly, if we get a great resume or a great referral after that, we have the flexibility to open that up. So we always want to keep the flexibility in there for the right candidate. And as Lisa said, we're always looking to, figure out where the best places to post the position are, what's going to get us the broadest reach to really find, a suitable certified candidate here in Connecticut.
I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, Lisa, I see on the committee, there'll be a Board of Ed member on the committee. Also, I'm not sure how this works. I think, while the board does not make the decision to hire the building administrators, that's finally, the final decision really rests with the superintendent. But once you have the leading candidate, I'm assuming, and I think we've done this in the past, we'll probably have an executive session for you to give us your thoughts on the process, the leading candidate, and why why the committee has decided to put forward the one candidate for hiring, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'm sure there's more to come on this.
Thank
as
you.
we move forward in the process. Okay. Next item is superintendent evaluation framework. I'll take that one. So it's posted. What became apparent, the superintendent evaluation process has been one that's always been a verbal process that's gone on each year between the board and the superintendent, but there hasn't really been a formal evaluation framework put in writing. And so I thought, and the board thought, that it would be a good idea to put down a formal evaluation framework and a timeline for evaluation. I think it's just good practice to do that. And so the document that we have was really created by the board. We had an executive session to talk about the things that we want to include in the evaluation framework. And so when you go through, I'm not going to go through the document in detail, But the document has the superintendent evaluation process, which really starts in the summer with the goal setting process, where the district goals become the superintendent goals. There's a timeline for a mid-year evaluation, which we will probably do an executive session in February, which is informal. And then there's a formal evaluation that's done in June. So the evaluation framework really has the timeline. It talks about which parts of the evaluation are done in executive session and which parts of the evaluation are done in public. And it also basically has a superintendent and board review template where the district goals, there's going to be really two aspects to the superintendent evaluation. One is a review of the district goals and how well we did in terms of executing on our district goals over the course of the year. And the second part of the evaluation framework is a competency framework that's really used by most of the boards in Connecticut to evaluate the superintendent. So basically this document, once we approve as a board to become the official evaluation framework, will be posted for everyone to see. Like I said, it includes a timeline and it includes a framework from which we're to evaluate the superintendent. We thought that it would be transparent, and I think it's necessary for the public to understand the elements that we're looking at when we evaluate the superintendent, simply because, the board, two main functions of the board is to hire and evaluate the superintendent. And the second one is to review and approve the budget. And having a formal evaluation document that outlines the process and the elements of the evaluation, I think are critical in terms of evidencing our supervisory duties as a board. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about it. It's posted. We've reviewed it in executive session. So I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions.
Tony.
Tony, it's Taffy. I'm sorry I can't be on screen with you all today. Tonight. I'll just be quick. And that is, I just want to say that we can't we need to state how valuable it is to have regular weekly and monthly meetings with the superintendent, which are part of an evaluation, in that nothing should be a surprise during an evaluation. The mid-year, the end of year, everything should be so transparent in all of your meetings, Tony, with Lisa, if they're weekly, if they're bi-weekly, that really nothing is a surprise. Because, the days of the old evaluation where it was, okay, this is the end of the year evaluation and you've been terrible for a year is over. We are much more transparent and collaborative as a team. So I just wondered whether it would be useful to have a paragraph in the introductory page just written into that effect, that the assumption is that we are in close communication throughout the year, providing regular feedback, to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, to that's a good point, Taffy. I think that the chair and the vice chair have weekly meetings with the superintendent, and in those weekly meetings, we do highlight. I think the communication is really good. Any material issues that are brought up in those meetings are then put on the agenda for public board meetings. And so I think that's a very good point. I can certainly amend the document and to do that. But I think that right now, I agree. Ongoing communication between the board, the superintendent, and the administration is a critical part, and we shouldn't be waiting for formal touch points of evaluation to actually make sure that issues are raised and dealt with. And I think, from my perspective, the communication between the chair, the vice chair, and the superintendent, and raising important issues to the board, I think I think the communication channels are really good. But I certainly could amend the document to do that.
Thanks.
Tony, can you just speak to if this is something new that Weston Public Schools is doing, or have we done something like this in the past for prior superintendents?
I think that we've always evaluated the superintendent. And I think those evaluations have been, the typical process is that the evaluation of the superintendent is done in an executive session with the board, and then the chair, the executive team then sits with the superintendent and goes through the evaluation that was done in the executive session with the board. I think this is adding a lot more structure to the evaluation process so that everyone understands what the time frame and the elements are for the evaluation. So it's not it's not a process that's cloaked in secrecy as it was in the past. I think that there are still elements of this that have to be done in executive session, but at least everyone understands exactly the framework that we're using to evaluate the superintendent. And I must tell you, there are not, when you look at evaluation process for other districts in Connecticut, most, some have an evaluation framework and template on their website that you can go through. I would say many, if not most, don't.
Hey, Tony, I just wanted to open the door for a conversation about potentially professional development for the Board of Ed and their role doing the evaluation so that we can make our best evaluation and understand the criteria for an educational setting, but also that there's consistency year over year. If the board changes, that the process is firm and that we're all on the same page and professionally approaching it.
Are you saying that we should probably have a board evaluation as well, right?
That too, but also a training for the Board of Ed in terms of professional development so that we are the best evaluators that we can be and is accurate in understanding of the context of what we're looking at.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. And we should discuss that, but I think that's a good point. And I think we also need, in step 2, which I would like to see, is a board self-evaluation as well. That I'd like to work on. I didn't want to bite off too much at one shot, and so I thought we'd get the superintendent evaluation framework done first. But I do think we need a board self-evaluation, which I think maybe is I think continuing education and training the board not only in issues around evaluation, but also general training of the board on legal issues, FOIA issues, board best practices is probably something we should be doing more of as well. But I think that's probably a good topic for us to actually get our hands around and do some work over the summer months.
If I can add, I think and I think you're spot on, Bernie. The Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, CAPS, has these documents and shares these documents specifically around the evaluation framework for superintendents. They also, along with CABE, have ways that the board can self-evaluate. And I do think all of that is a very important part of the process, because, you know, quite frankly, that's how I will grow professionally in the role, as will the board. So thank you for bringing up the PD, Bernie. A true educator. It's
I also
important.
think, you know, that's a good point. The superintendent's competency framework is one that's used across Connecticut. We thought as a board, we really needed to add another element of that, which is the district goals, which is such an important part of the evaluation framework, as well as the competency framework. Any other questions or comments? I think we need a motion on this one.
Yes, move that the Weston Board of Education approve the superintendent evaluation framework.
And maybe with the caveat that I will probably edit the first paragraph to include some of Taffy's sentiments. Can I have a second?
Second, that was Taffy.
Thanks, Taffy. All in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Peter.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, thank you. Bill, you're up next.
Good.
Financial update.
Just want to give a quick financial update for the period ending December 2021. So for the year, this time of the year, that we're halfway mark, we tend to have a better sense as to how things are trending and where we anticipate at this time how we will end the year. For the period ending December 31st, we do anticipate that we'll end the year in the positive, 61,697. Just want to point out that although at this point we are showing a favorable balance, we still have some lingering uncertainties that could swing the projection to an unfavorable position. We made some adjustment to several object codes: health insurance, workers' comp, cleaning services, general insurance, and a downward adjustment to our excess cost reimbursement. Just want to step through real quick. As it relates to health insurance, based on our current census and what we project for future additional enrollment for the end of the year, we do anticipate a net savings, this difference between premiums and employee cost share, of approximately $199,000. We've also released or reduced our anticipated expenditure for workers' comp of $15,594. We have reduced anticipated expenditure for cleaning services to the tune of almost $14,000. And this is primarily to account for a reimbursement that we received from the Department of Emergency Services for FY21 COVID-related expenditures. We have a net savings for general insurance of $23.71, and we are anticipating a less than budgeted receipt for excess cost reimbursement. The main drivers for that is that we do have expenditures that are below the excess cost threshold for us, which is $106,263. We're keeping a close eye on a few other revenue offsets: gate receipts, parking fees, and theater receipts. Any questions on the financials?
Phil, I kind of think I asked this question in Finance Committee, but what are some of the big swing factors that potentially you're keeping your eyes on as we move through the year?
Sure. So in terms of the lingering uncertainties that we have, we still have some uncertainties as it relates to our overall SPED PPS. And as Tracy has mentioned several times, there's the various mental health concerns that we have for our general community. In addition to that, we're keeping a close eye on our legal fees as well. We did mention that we did see a significant uptick in costs for various line items for our district, not spread, but for our district general legal fees. So really, those are really the main concerns that we have at this point. And as I mentioned also, we may not receive as much as we budgeted for other remaining revenue offsets.
Any questions or comments on the financial update?
Just real quick, if there's no other question, just to mention on our internal services fund, which represent dental claims for our employees, we are trending to budget. We're slightly above our theoretical, or slightly below our theoretical, so things are pretty much trending to budget for dental claims. And that is it for the financial update.
Great. If there's no questions or comments, can I have a motion?
Yes, move that the Weston Board of Education approve the December financial report for fiscal year 21-22.
Have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Dave. All in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have a second read, I believe, of policy.
Yes, thanks, Tony. This is policy 6146.2, credit for online courses. It's in the packet that you received, and it's in board book as an attachment. We did discuss it last month, or actually, I think it was in our November meeting as a first read. It basically outlines the approval process for credit for online courses. We did not receive any feedback or comments on the policy, so it's up for a second read, which would put it up for a vote this evening. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to address them. Otherwise, I think we can have a motion and a vote.
I'm sorry, Melissa, were there any updates after the first read?
There were not.
Okay, all right. Can I have a motion then?
I'll read the motion. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the second read of policy 6416.2, credit for online courses.
Can I have a second?
I second, Bernadette.
Thank you, Bernadette. All in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Tony, before you move on, I just wanted to make one comment to Jody.
Yeah.
The attachment has the red line, Jody, and I just want to make sure that when now that the vote has been approved and it's finalized, that we have a clean version put forward.
Yes, actually, there's right behind the red line is a clean copy of the policy.
I looked at it. It's a clean copy of the old policy pre-red line changes.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the reason why I'm bringing it up. just
Okay,
so that
yes.
We can make sure that we don't accidentally put forward the old version instead of the
No,
new
I
one.
will convert the red line to a final copy for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Lisa, back to you on the district update.
Thank you. The first thing I just wanted to mention was the calendar update in that February 16th is now, it's February 16th, right? I just lost my calendar. February 16th is now going to be the half day or the early dismissal for professional development. That's the day that is the Wednesday right before the break. The reason that we did that was because if we had kept the original date, it would be right in the middle of the high school midterms. So we wanted to avoid that. So just wanted to, it's posted, but also when it went out to families to take note that the early dismissal is now on February 16th. And this way midterms won't be disrupted. Thank you, Ms. Gavoni. COVID-19 update with regards to that. We've been sending out different things every week. We are having the big news from the state is that with regards to pool testing, they will now allow vaccinated students to be tested as well. So we are going to be starting that. The middle school also has expanded now. It's K-8, correct, Mr. Doak? Starting next week, vaccinated students. And then after midterms, we are going to open it up for the high school students. Today, unfortunately, we were not able to do the middle school, correct, Mr. Doak, because of the delayed opening, but the other two schools, took place. And we have a vaccination clinic on, I believe, is it February 4th, I'm thinking, is that correct, Ms. Sakata? First, February 1st. And that's, those are very popular, I guess I will say, for the students and to get vaccinated. So that's it right now for the COVID-19 update. We have put our handbook back. For a while it was under construction coming out of after the break, because we were checking on some things and some of the rules regarding contact tracing had changed. We follow, of course, the recommendation of the Connecticut State Department of Health, CDC, and the Connecticut State Department of Education. So that's the COVID update.
Are
Go ahead.
we seeing a general trend down now of our cases and quarantines? Or is it too early to tell?
I think that we are optimistically seeing that. Yeah. But I think that, fingers crossed, that's what they're saying on the news. I did not get a chance to check the dashboard today, but that would be wonderful if that were the case and it was also part of our community. We'll send out another update at the end of this week, and I'll be sure to make sure we have accurate figures. Sometimes people are like, I don't think the dashboard's accurate during this very challenging period. And please be patient. We will get it updated. It's for the purposes of our control. There's only 2 people in the district that are allowed to update the dashboard because we want to make sure that it's accurate. But it seems, I don't know if the principals are, if not, if you agree, it seems to be a little bit smoother. Anecdotally, knock on wood, but that doesn't mean that every day we still don't have challenges, especially when, when staff is out for a variety of reasons. Shall I move to the safety update?
Sure. The
safety update is for Phil Cross, said he would talk about that as Director of Operations. And I see Dan DeVito's on. Phil Cross, where are you? There you are. I'm sorry. I didn't see your camera. I was looking for your words. Mr. Cross, if you could give us an update on the meetings we recently had.
Sure. So we're getting back in the swing of things. As you know, with COVID, for the past year or so, it was a little bit difficult to get everyone in one location or just on a Zoom call. So we did have a meeting last week. We had Select Women Manager Nestor. We had members of the police department, the fire department, emergency services, emergency medical services, and our school administration. And I think we wanted to take an opportunity just to get together and just to debrief one, and also just to review our current safety plan that we have, which is due to the state on an annual basis. We did advise the group that the plan itself has various items with it that are updated on an annual basis. So we did confirm that those updates were made. We did submit to the state just a first view because the deadline, I think we were a little bit behind, and we did submit the plan to the state for their review. They did review it, and they said everything was pretty much in order. At this point, only thing that is missing from the plan are the signatures, from the members, which the chief of police has the forms, and he has started the process, and we should have those soon. We also discussed the various drills that we have through the district. We have 9 drills. We have 6 fire drills, and we have 3 crisis drills that's held at the start of the year, and it continues for the remainder of the school year. We discussed the reunification plan, and these are plans that are in place. So if we should ever need to evacuate the buildings, where the families will join and pretty much receive their students. We discussed our notification system and some training that we have upcoming. And we did plan to start or to really reconvene to get kind of on our routine schedule for our quarterly meetings with all the members. Mike Delmastro will be meeting with Director of EMS to discuss further training for the Stop the Bleed plan that was in place, I think, a while back, Lisa. So that's pretty much a general update for the meeting that we had last week. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I just wanted to add, we're in the same boat as most of our Durgate counterparts and the other superintendents across the state with as far as turning in the paperwork, because the state actually had a meeting and they were going over the form, the signature forms and things like that. So I don't want people to think that everybody was a little bit behind, I guess, in summary. But that doesn't mean that we aren't well prepared for anything that happens, because we certainly want to make sure that our students and staff are safe.
Right, and just to follow up, so our plans were technically, we did submit the plans to the state. We just did not have that final signature page, but we're all set in terms of the overall plan. And again, the plan that we have, we do have a plan that's been in place now for several years. We do make routine updates to the plan, and on an annual basis, we do update various members on various committees on the plan.
One thing also that, and I wanted to say a shout out to Mark Berkowitz, the athletic director, is that there is a plan for, he had developed a plan for sort of emergencies after school. And I know this was an area of concern at both the town level, the board, the selectmen. And what we are doing is modifying that plan under the very capable hands of Mike Delmastro to be able to then provide it to organizations, town organizations and outside organizations that use our facilities and our fields. So thank you, Mr. Berkowitz, for giving us that template that we are now revising and hope to have that done next month.
Yeah, I think that's really important to do because, one of the things that as a board, one of the things that we were concerned about is that, we evaluate and we go over and make sure that our safety procedures, our protocols and so forth during the school day are reviewed and are, our best practices, but there are others who, the town uses our facilities in the evening, and we want to make sure that we have consistency and that the organizations that are using our facilities in the evening also are aware and are are aware of what our policies are and make sure that they're trained on the policies that we adhere to during the school day and when the school administration and our students are using the facilities as well.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mike.
We have an agenda item for a continuation of the budget discussion. the one thing that I suggested in the last workshop is that, because we didn't really finish going through the formal Q&A that were the answers to the board questions that were submitted by the administration. And so what I asked is everyone to kind of review the answers, and if there was any other additional questions on the Q&A pack that you wanted to bring up this evening, this would be a good time to do it. I think that timing wise, Thursday evening, we have the public forum Q&A. We have another workshop on Monday at 9 a.m. To continue our deliberation. And then it's Tuesday that we're actually scheduled to approve the budget. If we're all ready to. If we're not, there's another day later in the week. But I suspect that after the, tonight, if you have additional questions, public forum, and then we have another after the next workshop, I suspect we might be ready to deliberate on the budget. But let's start with additional questions. Does anyone want to jump in with any questions that they have on the Q&A pack? Well, I'll start with one. Number on page 6, it's number 24. I see the answer, but I can't square that with, says that in fiscal year 2022, the FTE for Hurlbut was increased by 1.73 FTE. I don't see that in the staffing summary, right? In the budget book, in the staffing summary for Hurlbut. I see
I'm sorry, can you reference the question again, Tony? I apologize.
Yes, number 24.
Okay.
Question number 24, it's page 6. So my question was the about 221,000 increase in the budgeted salaries for Hurlbut. And it said I don't see where the headcount was increased. I see budget to budget.
Right, Tony, so I think what you have to do, are you looking on the FY 21-22 budget book?
No, I'm looking at,
Right.
I'm looking at budget, yeah, basically budget to budget, right?
Correct. So when you compare the two, you're not going to see that 1.73 increase. So coming into FY 22, we did increase the class size, or we did go up by 1 FTE at 1.73 at Hurlbut from 2021 to 21-22.
Right,
So
but you have actuals for 21-22 as the same as
reflects the
budget.
increase, which reflects the increase of the 1.73.
Right, so you
right. So you
budgeted,
requested, I'm sorry. So you want a clarification surrounding why is it going up by 220,000 up,
right,
220,000, right?
Right.
But it's two-part. The first part is we went up by the 1.73 FTEs, and we pretty much came in greater than budgeted for those 1.73 FTEs. So that's the first part, right? The second part, which is the more significant part, is really the change that's there really reflects step increases, year-over-year increases for the remaining staff members.
right, but Phil, when I look at actuals for Hurlbut, it's the same as the budget for 21-22.
Right, but you would have to go the year prior, Tony, where you would see the increase, because what we're reflecting right now is it doesn't encompass the 1.73 increase. So you need to go one year prior to see the movement. Because we added a section at Hurlbut last year.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, for this current year, we went up by 1.
Right.
And then we had other increases that we had as well for a total of 1.73.
So we went up by 1 because we added a section.
Correct.
that was not in the budget?
That we added we did vote on that. I do believe we voted on
We
that.
voted on it, but it was, I'm not sure. Did we vote on it at budget time or did we add it?
No, I think we added post-budget. I think we added it for the WIS.
Okay.
So the increase in section for Hurlbut was approved during the process.
Okay. I understand what you're saying now. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the staffing section?
I have a question on, I think since we're using question numbers, 27, which is a combination of SLAM's enrollment, NESDEC's enrollment, and the addition, I think, of a kindergarten section.
Yes.
So my question for clarification is, it looks like what you're saying in response to that question is you're working off of SLAM's projection of 130. So you're working towards 7 sections. I'm just pulling up my notes here. 7 sections of kindergarten, but it sounds like, okay. But it sounds like what you're saying is if the kindergarten enrollment does trend lower towards NESDEC, you wouldn't be able to use that kindergarten teacher for 3rd grade, but you're saying the budgeted funds could be used for 3rd grade?
Correct. So basically, we have 2 areas that we're watching very closely. The first is kindergarten. And if you look at we're going with the 7 sections or the 130 students enrolled, and that's the median projection of SLAM. NESDEC came in at 114. So, if it's at 114, we won't need that section. However, we included it because quite frankly, it's either there we're going to need it or 3rd grade. Right now at 3rd grade, the projected enrollment is 163 with an average class size of 23 students. It's interesting because I had lunch with the 3rd grade teachers today, and I said, does anyone have any questions on the budget? And they were, well, keep watching that class size in grade 3 because that's the transition year. That's really important. So long story short, the plan is to put in the extra section of kindergarten. It might be used there. It might be used in 3rd grade. That doesn't mean we take a kindergarten teacher and put that kindergarten teacher in 3rd grade because, kindergarten, each area, if you will, has a very special configuration and the way to move someone, we would have to, discuss it but amongst the principals and myself and Dr. Craw. Further, it's interesting to note that how volatile the kindergarten numbers are, and maybe Ms. Kadis can speak to this because she pointed it out to me. When we did our chart, and we had, a chart, we were trying to get the most current numbers, we had kindergarten at 128 currently. If you were looking at the current enrollment, 128, 7 sections. And Laura, remember you called me and said that there were kids in InfoSnap, which is kind of the holding place before they transition as Weston residents. That number's 4 more were just added. So we're at 132, which speaks to sort of the volatility in the number. Laura, I don't know if you would like to add anything to that, please.
Yes, that is true. And when you're looking at the enrollment numbers for the incoming kindergarten section as well, you have to consider that while there's a difference between the 130 and the 114, 120 is really where you need that 7th section. So the difference, even at the lower projection 114, 120 is where we need the 7th section to maintain class size guidelines.
I think the important thing for us to note though is if we don't need a section, we're not going to fill the section. Like, regardless, let's say in another area, all of a sudden there's a drop we didn't anticipate. We just don't fill up with the amount of kids we have and, well, it's a little bit lower. We're just going to do it. That would be totally fiscally irresponsible. So the board is always, and the Board of Finance has always been really great. And when we need another section, to be able to ask for it in a special appropriation, which is what happened. What grade was that, Patty? This year's third grade? I can't remember.
Yeah, this year's third grade.
That we were concerned about. So we'll just keep watching the number. My best analysis is we're going to need one of those sections.
Yeah. Well, listen, I personally, my view is if we were really far, I understand that it's really hard when you have to actually fill something in the summer. But on the other hand, I've always, I've hated to tax people for something we're not going to use because, right. And so, but I think on this one, when the break even is 120, it's not like we're taking a huge, we're not adding a section, we're just keeping the section the way it is. And I don't know if we're taking a huge risk, but I know last year we definitely took a risk on one section because we didn't want to tax the taxpayers before we were certain.
And I think it speaks to the answer of another question. Class sizes is at the very heart of this community, to be frank. People come to Weston because they expect an appropriate class size, especially in K-5, kindergarten and first grade. And that's why, you could take a section off 5 grades, save $500,000 and fill all the classes up to 25, 26, in some cases, almost 27. I really don't think that that's what that Weston would want. That's also why we did include, there was a question about what were the Durgate class sizes, and you'll note that Dr. Carl put that together and included it in the packet. So you'd have reference to compare to.
You want to, I think it was posted.
It was posted, correct.
Okay.
It was in the packet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think getting that, it's in tonight's agenda. I think seeing the other Durgate classes and the sizes of, the neighboring town schools and enrollment, it sort of speaks to the investment that Weston makes in the smaller class sizes, especially at the K and first grade level. And it sounds like what you're saying, Lisa, is we can increase the class sizes and therefore not need or eliminate a section. But what suffers is that more personalized one-on-one. When a class goes from 18 or 19 kids to 24, there's you're not going to get the same level of education that you get in a smaller group setting, and that's probably not very. That's not that's something that the Weston Public Schools has historically kept the smaller class sizes, especially at the K1, because of that intimacy.
Exactly. And especially when you think about the impact of COVID and the, what's going on the last couple of years with little children not being in school full time or not being in preschool or different things like that. I think it's really important to keep that.
And just
those class size guidelines are very important at the early elementary level. It's the number one question I get when I talk to families. And typically, I get calls every week, either from an incoming kindergarten parent or somebody who's looking at Weston. And it's the number one question I get. What are your class sizes at Hurlbut? It's very important to families who are looking at districts. And it does have a tremendous impact on the classroom. If you've been in a classroom of 18 to 20 kindergartners, it's the very first time they're entering a formal school setting. And having that ability to interact with those children is very important for our teachers.
Yeah, and it looks like other schools too, Easton, that they tend to keep the smaller class sizes, especially at the K1 level. So we're not doing something that's out of the ordinary or different than the other schools in our Durgate. So.
No, not at all. I mean, New Canaan has an exemplary elementary program. Look at their class sizes, 16 to 20. So.
Any other questions on the Q&A document, especially the staffing section, which we didn't really go through in detail? Phil, I have one. It's not a question, but I am still a little bit once we get past the Board of Ed process and the way we're actually looking at, I'm going back to the whole grants, the grant FTEs, and how we split up the FTEs associated with the grants and the permanent grants as well as the temporary grants. And, I just want to make sure that when we get past the Board of Ed into the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, that it's not viewed as somehow we're playing some games to add headcount in some funky way that people can't track, right? And I think if we can actually, and I think you've done it in a few places, but maybe I want to get back to that. It's not for tonight, but maybe at the next workshop, to find a really good way of showing how the headcount, how we're tracking that headcount in what our expectation is about how we're going to fund those headcounts and what our risk is on those headcounts. I know you've done it, but we need to have one. Maybe it's in the multi-year budget, maybe it's in some other way, but I think we need one page for the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance so that it's very clear to everyone that this is not an accounting game we're playing. This is basically, we are accounting for all of the headcounts. We're funding them in a certain way. Some of the funding's not going to last. And this headcount that we have may or may not be a liability that we're going to have to fold back into the operating budget over time. But we need to be very clear what our expectation is, because I don't want to, that may be the topic of hours and hours of conversation if we don't actually be very clear and transparent about matching our headcount and our expenses and how this is going to evolve over the next couple of years. It's there. It's just that I'm not sure if we have it in a real pithy way that can actually be very clear to everyone who's looking at it.
Tony, you did mention that, and I think we did provide a document in the appendix for the Q&A. If that does not convey the message that you think we need to share with everyone in a clear way, please let me know, and I'll make some modification to that.
I think it probably has to be a little bit more front. It's basically almost taken out of the appendix and be a little bit more front and center in our baseline presentation. But maybe we can deal with it more at the workshop level on Monday.
Okay.
Can I ask you a clarifying question, not to muddy the waters, Tony? But so I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking for. So if you look at page 90 in the budget, where we have the certified staff summary, and then we have the non-certified staff summary, and you look at like change to actual, change to budget, then you have the grant staff and all of that. Basically, is what you're looking for more of a, how can I say this? It says grant, but like which grant, or not so much columns of all of these staff, but like a little bit more. Okay, this is the teacher's number.
Let me make it really simple, right?
Okay, yeah.
So someone could actually look and say, oh, you're finding a way to go from 347 headcount in 2021 to 359 headcount as a total staff, right? I don't really So you're
Yeah,
telling
like on
me-
page 93. I see what you're saying.
Right. So tell me why I'm wrong, right? Or maybe tell me why I'm right and what are the implications for the operating budget going forward, right?
Right. I think, Tony, I think where the clarification is needed is what we're presenting as the actuals for our current fiscal year. I think what's missing from that, the piece that's missing from that are the current staffing that we do pay from the grants, and I think we need to update that. So I think we went in a different direction, right, where we try to present what are the FTE that are covered in the grant. But what you're saying is that from a comparison purpose, if someone just takes the budget book as is and not go to the Q&A, it will appear that we're increasing our FTE. So we do need to make some updates, before we get to the two other boards.
Yeah, because what and I think that I think that we need to be very, very clear about the fact that whether, because some of this is really not grant FTE. I mean, we're not restating previous budgets, right? So some of the headcount is already in the operating budget and was already in the operating budget that we're pulling out, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and so that may be a confusing point for some casual observers of our budget that are really not steeped in the details. So I think that we just need to be. I think it's in a lot of the answers and in the appendix, it's all there. I just think we need to have a way of pulling that out and being able to explain that on one page. That's all.
Yeah, I think we need to make some modification to our existing staffing that we have in the main body of the budget book.
Yeah,
I think what can be overwhelming, I just know because I'm not as, used to looking at spreadsheets as Phil is, you see the grant FTE, and then in another place it talks about what's reoccurring, what's not. And it's so, okay, so if you look over here, you kind of understand which is reoccurring and which isn't. Then you look over here, then you see, okay, this is the grant. And then to be able to put it all on, like you said, on one sheet that in a clearer way, and then people can go back and look at the backup and the spreadsheets, but an easier way to quite frankly understand. Because you see grant FTE 18.6. Well, what does that number mean? What is the 14.5? And some of those are grants that will always reoccur because they're associated with IDEA.
Because at the end of the day, there's really three parts to this budget. There's healthcare, there's money set aside that we need for our special needs students, and then there's interventions that are either covered by permanent grants or grants that are going to actually, that are temporary. And I think that being just clear about the FTEs associated with the interventions and which ones are permanent and which ones are temporary that can become permanent are something that we need to probably be very clear about,
I understand. When would you like that? What's the date?
Let's discuss it on the Monday workshop. That's the next long session we have.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Thank you. I just want to make sure we're responsive in a timely manner. Okay.
Yeah, it's not about extra work. It's more about clarifying what we already have.
No. And these things also help, it just helps everyone to understand and drill right down to the through line of in these classrooms, what are the taxpayers paying for? What's a reoccurring grant and what's a grant that's going to dry up? And then when it dries up, how does that affect? What are we going to do? And specifically in the area of some of the SPED para educators that are being paid for from that ESSER, we have to figure it out. We can't just, let's hope for the best. I mean, that's not really the best way to do it. Hope is not a strategy as it was drilled into us.
Any other comments, questions, things that perhaps people want to see that might require a little work for Monday morning, because that, Friday, Thursday is really the public forum. So that the next time we're really going to be getting together to do any significant workshop work, it's really Monday morning.
I just had a couple of follow-up questions, Tony. Question 45, which comes out of page 35 in the budget book. I had asked about the hockey, and the answer in the Q&A looks like it just didn't get finished. So I was wondering if we had the rest of that information on the cost per family and why hockey is treated separately than the other sports on the chart.
Yeah, I apologize for that. It
No,
just
it's okay.
ends with approxim and then there's nothing else.
You kept me to it. I was on the edge of my seat.
I know. I think I was tired. Go, Mark Berkowitz, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened. I did finish the answer.
It's because of how I cut and pasted it.
Oh, it got cut and pasted. Gotcha.
And then,
they're paying upwards of approximately $1,800 to $2,000 a person to play hockey. They do not pay a participation fee to the school because the Board of Ed does not support financially the sport of hockey. That was cut from the budget many years ago when our numbers dwindled in the co-op that we were in with Staples at the time. Then we got bumped from Staples and we're fortunate enough to catch on with Joe Barlow and Abbott Tech to create a new co-op that has been working really well for boys. And our girls program was with the Milford schools. And unfortunately, they grew and we got bumped from them this past year. And we are now with a conglomerate of SWC schools, including Notre Dame and Massac and Newtown, and Joe Barlow and Laurelton Hall, and ex-SWC school. But those are fully financed by the parents and athletes in their programs.
how many play the sport, Mark? I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask.
This year we have 1 girl and 7 boys.
Thanks.
And obviously it fluctuates from year to year. We've been I think the most we've had would be 10 in any given year, since I've been AD, I should say. And, we've been lower. We've had as little as 4, I would say, on the boys side. The girls we had 3 at its height. It's down to 1. I do hear that there are some 7th and 8th graders who are coming up in the next year or 2 that will help to build that program.
Okay, so it sounds like it's mainly the cause of any sport not being supported by the district is initially first on a numbers, kind of an enrollment decision to see how many people are interested, and then if it's not sustainable, I guess it's not cost effective in terms of the amount of gear, or the coaches or the staff associated costs, then we decide to have the families pay on their own and join a inter-district league.
Well, they play in the same league as all of our sports do.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yes, they do. It's called a co-op. If you have below a certain number, the number is different in every sport. Then you can form a co-op. Co-ops are very popular in ice hockey. They're also getting popular in ski. There are a lot of football co-ops. But basically, and there's in other sports as well, we'll have 2 co-ops in our conference this coming spring, 1 in boys lacrosse and 1 in girls lacrosse that are new. So it's 2 towns that are trying to build a program. The point of a co-op is to grow a program so that you can go off on your own.
Okay.
I don't know, in ice hockey, I'm not sure that will ever really be possible for us. It hasn't been in my 15, 16 years. We just don't have the numbers. You need a good 20. And like I said, our high has been 10. It'd be great if we could do it, but that is the point of the co-op. But it plays in the regular state tournament and conference tournaments and all of that belongings. And yes, the Board of Ed a number of years ago, and I could go back and look, I don't remember the exact year, decided that because of the numbers in the program that it wasn't cost effective to put the money into the program that they were. And that obviously put the cost onto the families. I know those families spend a lot of money on hockey and would love help at any point. Our booster club does make some donations to help a little bit, but it is just a little bit. That's where we are with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a follow-up question, number 47. And that's not in athletics, Mark. It's just in overall, I think, relating to the other districts in Durg A and their budget increases from last year. And I know the document stated that you guys were working on compiling that information. I was just wondering if you had it or if we'll have it by Monday.
Are you talking, Melissa, is that everyone, the
Question 47?
23 budgets, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think some schools are out with it, some are not yet.
Yeah, no, yes, I think 23 for sure, but also I would like to see 22 because I think those numbers should be public. And they are, those were also COVID years. Those were also our competing districts in terms of having, an impact on their real estate values as well. So I feel like they were similarly situated. I think it's just interesting, when we think about our education product that we produce here in Weston as a marketable commodity, like what is its value in the marketplace? What are our competitors doing? And, I think, every district is different and every district has a different tax base, different commercial options in towns for sure. But I think it would help guide us a little bit to understand how our competitors are investing in their school districts. So I think it would just be a useful point to have if we could compile that publicly available data from last year, but also to the extent where we are learning what districts are putting forward this year as well, would be nice.
Yeah, that would be great.
So I believe we're working on that, correct?
We are. Remind me, what question is this again, Melissa?
I thought it was 47, Phil, but I lost my page.
But that's fine though. But you're pretty much looking for a Durg A comparison, correct?
Exactly.
No, it was definitely not question 47. Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's the question after 47.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, just the Durg A comparisons with
It was under additional questions. Yeah, the Durg A. Remember we talked about it and you didn't think all the numbers were in, but we'll have that for you.
Yeah.
So you want 22 and 23. Right?
Yeah, whatever they have 22 and then whatever they have, whoever has 23 already out.
Okay.
So I think like only 3 schools have 23 out already. Any other questions, comments? No. If there isn't, we have one more item tonight, and it came from the Communications Committee. I think there was a discussion at the Communications Committee about potentially a change in how we do public comment. So I don't know, David, do you want to summarize maybe what was?
Yeah, I can do that.
What was,
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, so when the communication committee met last month, there was a discussion about potentially adding an additional section of public comment. And the spirit of it was, at the moment, it feels like we ask for public comment pretty much at the beginning of each of our board meetings. And there might be interest on the public to be able to comment closer to when a topic that is of interest to them is scheduled within the agenda. So rather than having the comments occur early on, have the comments occur at a time closer to an agenda item that they might want to speak to.
Okay, yeah, so that, that came out of, I mean, that came out of committee, so it's something that we really need to discuss in public as to whether we want to make that change. I don't know, how does others who are not on the committee feel about it?
I mean, I can give my thoughts. I think public comment is very useful, and I enjoy hearing it. I think it's really an incredibly important part of being on a board of education. I personally enjoy having it up front because it gives me more time to consider what's been said and factor it into my analysis. I mean, we prepare for these board of ed meetings, days in advance, sometimes weeks in advance. And we have questions and comments that are thought out based on the presentations and the materials that are provided to us. And I think it's helpful to have as much time to process public comment as possible, to incorporate that into my own thoughts and questions that I may formulate and ask of our administration during their presentations. I also think I would guess, but I don't want to speak for the administration, it would probably give them likewise more time to prepare answers and thoughts that they can incorporate into the presentations that they're giving later in the board meeting if the public comment is given at the outset. I mean, that being said, I don't feel particularly strongly. It's just a preference that I would have, and that I think makes sense, but I'm certainly open to other viewpoints.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you, Melissa, but also, I think people like to engage with the board at the very beginning of the meeting, regardless of the topic, right? So I'm not sure, if we had a line of people commenting on a number of different issues, it might be worthwhile to segregate them, and but you don't really have that many people really commenting at each of the meetings. I don't know. I mean, I think if we had more, we certainly probably could kind of figure out a better way of incorporating them into the meeting at the right time, but we just don't have that many. And probably people just want to give their comments at the very beginning. I mean,
we can't respond, so
right.
It seems like, I don't know. I would think if I remember the public and I wanted to speak, it would be better to know that I could do it at a certain time, and I could plan around that. Otherwise, our meetings run, certain topics can run much longer than anticipated, and it's hard to know when to show up if you wanted to give a comment on it for a specific point only.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Anybody else have a strong feeling one way or the other? No. So, unless we have a majority of people who want to change things, I suggest we just leave it the way it is for now. And could always have this discussion later if we find that it's necessary to do this.
I think that it would be a good idea at this point we've had this initial conversation. It's out in the public for those who are watching now or may watch this after it's online. If they are interested, they should let us know, because you're right, Tony. At the moment, we are responding to what we see, right? And what, or
Right.
what, who
Yeah.
shows up. And
Yeah.
we get very little public comment. And the intent was to make it easier.
Yeah.
But if there may be a problem, we may be trying to solve something that's not really a problem. So
Yeah, I think that's I think that's, you know, whoever's participating on the live stream, or if, you know, if they're viewing it later, yeah, if they have a strong view on this, absolutely send us an email. Let us know what you think. They might have some other alternatives and some other thoughts that might be helpful as well, that we haven't really discussed or thought of.
all right, so I think that's probably a good way to leave it. We at the moment we table it, we see what kind of feedback we get, and we go based on that.
Okay, that'd be great. Good. Any other comments from any of the committee chairs? Or any updates? Okay, I think that's it. Anything, any other business that anyone wants to bring up? No? Okay. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn, and we'll pick it up on Thursday in the public forum?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Everyone.